Okay, the next topic is called select case decision structures. So this is an alternative, as we said, to the if-then-else structure. We just learned about the if-then-else structure, and we saw cases where you would do if-then-else if with several else-if clauses in there. Okay, and this is an alternative to that. So let's look at this case. So suppose that we have a variable called age, and it equals 18. But depending on the person's age, in this case the person is actually 18, but depending on their age, if they are 16 years old, we want to say, you can drive now. That's the law in, I think, in at least some states in the United States. And if it's 18, that is, if the person is 18 years old, we want to say in label1.text, we want to say, you can vote now. If their age happens to be 21, we want to say, you can drink wine with your meals. So in other words, you can drink now. And then if their age is 65, we want to say, time to retire and have fun. Okay, so we could accomplish that with if-then-else. How would we do it? We would say something like, if age is equal to 16, then what? Then label text, well, whatever. Then we would write somehow, you can drive now. Else if, so we would say else if age equals 18. So let's see, we could write it like this, right? We define age as an integer, and then we say, if your age equals 16, then label1.text equals you can drive now. If your age is 18, you can vote now. 21, you can drink now. 65, you can retire and have fun now. Okay, so we could write it like that. Okay, so and that's a perfectly fine way to do it, but we're going to introduce another way to do it. And notice though that in this example, each time we have the if-then, we're always testing the same variable. We're always looking at age each time. You know, when you're doing if-then, else-if, 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 you don't have to be testing the same variable each time. You could say, if the age is 16, this happens. If you have blue eyes, then something else. If your income is something, then something else. So you could do whatever with else-if. You could have different variables each time, but that isn't the case here, right? All the variables are the same. We're testing the same variable for different conditions. If that's the case, then you can use this other structure. So let's look at it. So this is the way you write it. So you say select case, you start out with that, and you end with end select. So just like in here, we said if, we start out with if-then, go through this, and then we end with end if. Okay, so in this one, we start out with select case, and then we end with end select. Okay, so that's the beginning and the end. Then we mention the variable that we're testing. So in this case, the variable is age. So we put age up here. Okay, and then we just put the different cases. So we want to consider the case when the person's age is 16. We want to consider the case when the person's age is 18. We want to consider the case where the person's age is 21. And what other cases we'd like to consider, we can just include them here like this. And then with each case, we can say what we want to do by what follows that case. So case 16, this is what we want to happen. We want label1.text to say this. For in the case that 18, or the case that age is equal to 18, then we want this to happen. In the case that age is equal to 21, we want this. So these are different values that age can be. Okay, these are different values that age can be. Okay, and this is called the select case decision structure. So instead of saying it specifically for the age situation, we can do it in general. We can talk about what it is, how we write it in general. And we write it in general. Again, first we put select case and end select case. And then we mention the variable that we're going to be testing. And then we mention the cases, the different possible values that this variable can take that we're considering. So case value 1, for example, we said 16. Case value 2, for example, we said 18. And so on. And then after each one, after value 1, we say what we want to happen in that case. After value 2, we say what we want to happen in that case. So it's just select case and the variable, select case and the variable, and then case, 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 and the values that you're interested in. So case, whatever that value is, case, whatever that value is, case, whatever that value is, and so on. And you just do that, and then you end with select. Now here they put in one last thing, and this is case else. So if you list a bunch of different possible cases, but suppose you're not including all of them, just a few of them. And then for all the others, you can say, okay, all the ones I didn't talk about, all the ones that I didn't mention up here, all the ones that I didn't list up here, if it's any of the others, then do this. So you can use the case else at the end to say, oh, I want to do this for every other case. Okay? And that's the case select, or the select case decision structure. Okay, let's read what he says. A select case decision structure begins with the select case keywords. Here, select case keywords, also called reserved words, and ends with the end select keywords, or reserved words. You replace variable with the variable or the property. So it doesn't have to be variable, it could be like a property, like it might be the text of some label. And then you say, in case that text is equal to this, you'll do one thing. In case that text is equal to something else, you'll do something else, and so on. As long as you're examining only one thing, one variable, one property, not many different ones, and looking at different cases or different possible values for this thing up here. So you replace variable with the variable, property, or other expression that is to be the key value or test case for the structure. So this would be the test case. So age is the test case. You replace value 1, value 2, value 3 with numbers, that's what we used, or strings or other values related to the test case being considered. If one of the values matches the variable, the statements below that case clause are executed. So if it matches this one, then these are executed. Okay? And then Visual Basic, if it matches this one, and then this is executed, then after that's executed, Visual Basic jumps to the line after end select. So it goes down to here. So in other words, it jumps out of this whole clause and goes to here. So it goes to the next thing. Sorry, then you could say 13 to 19, and you could have a message for that. So this is a range, and then 21, and then greater than 100, and then the else. So you could do this. He says you can use comparison operators to include a range of test values in a select case structure. The Visual Basic comparison operators that can be used are these. So equals, not equals, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. To use comparison operators, you need to include the is keyword. So you have to have, so if you're using this comparison operator, you have to have is. And we saw that each time they used the comparison operator, they had to insert the word is. The is keyword instructs the compiler to compare the test value to the expression listed after the is keyword. You can also use the to keyword. So the to keyword identifies a range of values, so 13 to 19. The following structure uses is, to, and several comparison operators to test the age variable and display one of 5 messages. Okay? Okay, so third project for homework will be this one. Use a select case structure to process input from a list box. Now we know that a list box can contain many different options, and so it seems appropriate that we might use the case to decide what to do depending on what the user does in the list box. Remember, we need to have a single property or a single variable that we're comparing different, checking what happens if it has different values. So what is that single property going to be in this case? We're going to have a list box. It's going to be called list country box because it's going to have a bunch of different countries in it. But it's basically going to be a list box. And we're going to be checking the list box text property. And based on what it is, we're going to do different things. No, I'm sorry. We're going to choose the list box, not its text property, its selected index property. So remember that the list box can have, the first item will be called 0, will have an index of 0. The second item will have an index of 1. The third item will have an index of 2. And the fourth item will have an index of 3. So if there are 4, we'll have those different indices. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your list country box, or your list box, and you're going to add items to it. You're going to take items and apply the add method, and you're going to add items to it. So you're going to have England, Germany, Mexico, and Italy. And these will be displayed in your list box. In other words, you're going to have something like this. You're going to have International Welcome Program, choose a country, England, Germany, Mexico, Italy, and then people will select one, and then it will pick up the index. This has index 0, index 1, index 2, and index 3, and then based on that, it's going to give a response here. Okay? So that's what you're supposed to build now, and you're supposed to do it using the case select method. Of course, you could do this with if then else, if, but the point here is to try and do it with the select case decision structure. Of course, again, you have to be comparing only one variable or one property with, but you're checking for the different cases or the different things that can be equal to. In this example, we're looking at the index, but it's the same index over and over again. We're just checking whether it's 0, 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so I want you to do this for homework. I'll scroll through the instructions for you. So they say, in the following exercise, you'll see how you can use the select case structure to process input from a list box. You'll use the listbox1.text and listbox1.selectedIndexChanged properties to collect the input, and then you'll use a select case structure to display a greeting in one of 4 languages. So here's what you're supposed to do. I'll just scroll through this. Okay. and then I'll scroll to the next page, or the next part here. And they say, since there are so many objects, you'll also assign name properties to help you easily identify the control on the form. So you saw it was called country box. So they changed the name to make it easier to remember. When the properties in the properties window are sorted alphabetically, you'll find name listed in parentheses near the top of the properties window. So they're just telling you how to find the name property. I recommend that you use the name property whenever you have more than 4 or 5 objects in a program. In this example, I've given the object names that feature a 3-character prefix to identify the object type. So he's doing he's using modified Hungarian notation, basically, such as BTN for button, LBL for label, and LST for listbox. So we have label 1, he changes it to label title, and label 2 he changes it to label text box label, and label 3 he changes it to label country. Okay, so you're supposed to change all of these. Change the text property, change the font, the name, and the text for label 1, change the name and the text for label 2, change the font and the name and the text for label 3, and so on. Do all of these. Okay. I'll stop that, and then I'll go on. And here's what it's supposed to look like. And, sorry, here's a little bit more. 9, 10, and 11. 9, 10, 11. 12. Okay, 13 and 14. 15, you can save it, but not here. Save it in a place where you'll find it. Check it with 16. 17. Okay, let's read one thing first. Let's just go over this again. The first line copies the name of the selected list box item. So list country box dot text takes that text value that's been selected and puts it in our label country text, which you saw down here. It's here, Italy, showing here. The most important property used in the statement is the list country box text, which contains the exact text of the item selected in the list box. So that's here. The remaining statements are part of the select case decision structure. The structure uses the list country box dot selected index property. So the selected index property, the list country box selected index property, as the test case. So like as the variable up here. And then we're testing, is it equal to this, is it equal to this, is it equal to this? Okay? The selected property always contains the number of the selected index property always contains the number of the items selected in the list box. The item at the top is 0, the second item is 1, the next item is 2, and so on. By using selected index, the select case structure can quickly identify the user's choice and display the correct greeting on the form. Okay, let's do one more thing and then we'll be finished. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to take the same form. So you're going to take the same form. Actually, this will be part of project 3. So you're going to take the same form, and if the user puts their mouse over here and just sort of sits here for a second, it's going to display a message like hurry up and click or something like that. Okay, so we want to do that. Okay, so let's read what he says. He says, I began this chapter by discussing a few of the events that Visual Basic programs can respond to. So of course we know about the button click event and a few others. As the chapter progressed, we learned how to manage different types of events by using the if-then and select case decision structures. In this section, you'll add an event handler to the select case program that detects when the pointer, the mouse, hovers over the country list box for a moment or two. You'll write the special routine or event handler by building a list box procedure for the mouse hover event. So we're going to have, instead of button click or whatever, we're going to write the code for a mouse hover event, one of several mouse-related activities that Visual Basic can monitor and process. This event procedure will display the message, please click the country name. So it won't say hurry up, it'll say, please click the country name, if the user points to the country list box for a moment or two, but doesn't make a selection. Perhaps because he or she doesn't know how to make a selection, or has become engrossed in another task. So you open the code editor, and you want to click the list country box object. And you can use the tooltip to help you identify the elements, like the class name list box in Visual Studio, which is another example of the, well anyway, don't worry about that. Click the method name arrow and click mouse hover. So basically what they want you to do is go here, click on whatever it is, like for example, suppose I wanted a mouse hover for this label. I would click on this label, I would double click on this label, and then I could find the mouse hover event for this label. Actually, I'm on the form, not on the label. Oh, here I am. The label. I want to be on the label. Let's see, where is that? Okay, now, so if I'm in the label, or wherever you want this to be, but in your case it's not going to be the label, but then you will click, then you'll select over here and do mouse hover. There's a mouse hover for the label, so I'll do that. And it gives me the sub-procedure for that event handler, for the mouse hover event handler for label 1. Okay, and then you can begin to write your code. So they said you'll see something like this. And now further explanation. Each object on the form, every object on our form, has one event procedure that opens automatically when you double click on it. So like a button will open to the button click event. But if you want to choose a different one, if you want a code for a different event, you need to open the remaining event procedures up here, and you search through them up here. Now you're supposed to type in this, and what does this say? If nothing is selected, basically, if the index is less than 0, or if it's greater than 4. So basically, if nothing is selected, then you want to generate this. Please click the country name in label greeting.txt. Okay, so do that and make sure that that works as well. Here are the rest of the instructions. And here is a reference to what we've done. So you might want to just read through this quickly, just to review what we've done.